You have a project you're genuinely excited about. Maybe it's a creative hobby, a side business, or a personal goal you've been dreaming about for months. You think about it constantly. You can see the finished version in your mind, and it's beautiful. This should be easy, right? You actually want to do this. But every time you sit down to work on it, something stops you. You suddenly need to clean your room. You need to organize your files. You need to research just a little bit more. Hours pass, and you haven't started. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. And that project you love, it's still sitting there, untouched. Meanwhile, you have no problem doing things you don't care about. You can finish work assignments. You can respond to emails. You can do the boring, mundane tasks without hesitation. But the thing that actually matters to you, the thing you're passionate about, you can't seem to touch it. If this is you, I need you to understand something. You're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're terrified. And today, we're going to decode why you procrastinate on the things you love and give you a framework to finally start. Let's look at the psychology. When you procrastinate on something meaningless, it's usually because you lack motivation. But when you procrastinate on something meaningful, it's because you care too much. This is the perfectionist's paradox. The more something matters to you, the harder it becomes to start. Here's why. When you work on something you love, the stakes feel incredibly high. This project is not just a task, it's a reflection of your identity. It's tied to your dreams, your values, and your sense of self worth. So when you imagine starting it, your brain doesn't just see a blank page or an empty canvas. It sees the possibility of failure, and not just any failure, a failure that proves you're not good enough. Psychologists call this fear of judgment, but it's deeper than that. You're not just afraid of what others will think, you're afraid of what you'll think. You're afraid that if you try your best and it's still not good enough, you'll have to face a painful truth that maybe you're not as talented as you hoped, that maybe the dream was bigger than your ability to execute it. So, your brain does something clever. It protects you by keeping you in the planning phase. As long as you don't start, the dream stays perfect. It stays safe. You can keep imagining the ideal version without risking the messy reality. But this safety comes at a cost. The project never gets done. And the longer you wait, the more pressure builds, which makes it even harder to start. There's another layer to this. Perfectionism creates an impossible standard. You're not just trying to create something good, you're trying to create something perfect. And because perfection doesn't exist, you're setting yourself up to fail before you even begin. Every time you sit down to work, your brain compares your current ability to the ideal outcome, and the gap feels insurmountable. So you don't start, but here's the truth: the gap is supposed to be there. That gap is not a sign of failure, it's a sign that you're growing. Every creator, every artist, every entrepreneur has experienced this gap. The difference is they started anyway. So, how do we break free from this paradox? You need a framework that lowers the stakes and gets you moving. Step one is separating creation from evaluation. Your brain is trying to create and judge at the same time, and that's paralyzing. So, you need to split these into two separate phases. When you're creating, your only job is to make something, anything. It doesn't have to be good, it just has to exist. You'll have time to evaluate later. But right now, you're just building the raw material. Step two is the 2 minute start. You're not going to finish the project today. You're not even going to make significant progress. You're just going to work on it for 2 minutes. That's it. Open the document. Sketch one line. Write one sentence. The goal is not to complete anything. The goal is to break the seal. Once you start, the resistance drops. And often, those 2 minutes turn into 20. Step three is embracing the bad first draft. Give yourself permission to create something terrible. In fact, aim for terrible. Tell yourself, I'm going to make the worst version of this just to get it out of my head. This removes the pressure of perfection. You're not trying to create a masterpiece. You're just trying to create a starting point. You can always improve it later, but you can't improve something that doesn't exist. Step 4 is reframing failure. Stop seeing mistakes as proof that you're not good enough. Start seeing them as data. Every bad draft teaches you something. Every failed attempt brings you closer to the solution. Thomas Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Your so called failures are not the end of the road, they're part of the process. Step 5 is lowering the stakes. Ask yourself, what would this look like if it were easy? You've built this project up in your mind as this massive, life defining thing. But what if it didn't have to be? What if you could work on it just for fun? What if you could create something imperfect and still feel proud? The moment you lower the stakes, the resistance disappears. And finally, step 6 is committing to consistency over intensity. You don't need to work on this for 8 hours. You don't need to have a perfect creative session. You just need to show up regularly, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum is what breaks through procrastination. Here's what I want you to remember: the thing you're avoiding is not too hard, it's too important. And that's exactly why you need to start. Not because it will be perfect, but because it matters. Stop waiting for the right time, the right mood, or the right level of skill. Start messy. Start imperfect. Start scared. Because the only way to close that gap between your vision and your ability is to begin. Your dream deserves more than living in your head. It deserves to exist in the world, flaws and all.